Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another edition of today's live chat. I'm Rebecca Fuhr. There's still plenty of time to get your questions in for today's chat. Send them to DOC_questions. We have exec staff from every division with us today to answer your questions. And to protect your privacy, I'll only read your question, never your name. Not sure if your question is right for this forum? It's okay. Send it in. Let's talk about it. Now, if you ever want to go back and rewatch any of these live chats, I always post the recording on the front page of DocNet under Executive Director Live Chats. Good morning, Mr. Sansel.
Hey, good morning, Rebecca. Hey, before we start the questions, there's just a couple of things that I want to touch on.
Of course.
That have come up. So first of all, I want to talk about, there's a rumor floating out there that HQ is expanding and there may be some offices that are moving. I want to touch on that. So when we did our decision to bring people back to the office 2 days a week, if everyone recalls, when the initial information went out about working from home due to COVID, yada, 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 there was an initiative by the governor to reduce the state's footprint in public spaces. And at that point, working from home was the philosophy. So we reduced the office space in HQ. Well, when that philosophy changed and we brought people back, one of the things that we noticed was we need to expand our office space. So there's office space available right across the street. If you've been to HQ, there's two buildings side by side. And we primarily are in the south building now. We moved CTA to the north building. We've also moved the pharmacy to the south building, and we were able to get rid of 2 leases by doing that. So we're now looking at, there's some space available in the north building, and we're looking at potentially expanding in some of that vacant space. We're in communication with the owners now, and that is going to be able to, if it all goes through as planned, that is going to give us some more space to even reduce more leasing spaces outside of the HQ area. So there were some questions about why hadn't this been talked about. Well, the reason we haven't talked about it, and there's some rumors out there, there's certain departments and all this kind of things, none of that's been developed or finalized. So we're still in the talking of it, but because the rumor is, the scuttle is out there, I wanted to address it on a much larger scale. There is some truth to the fact that we are expanding the space in HQ, but that's also going to allow us to, like we did with the pharmacy, like we did with CTA, there's some other leasing spaces we may be able to collapse into the area that we're going to expand. So I want to get that out there on this live chat. Then the other thing that I'm hearing is there's concern about, some of us on this call, the directors reading their answers. Well, I want to address that. When you ask specific questions that require specific answers from specific policies, the only way to get that right 100% of the time is to read the policy. Is it like the best TV kind of field? No, it's not. But the worst thing that we could do as your leaders is come on here and shoot from the hip, quoting policies, quoting things from policies, and make mistakes doing that. Because once we put it out there, is one memorialized in the recordings that you just spoke about that anybody can go and look at. And even if we make a change, being able to change that specific recording isn't possible. So the best way to get it right the first time is to read from the policy. So I know that I get this quite a bit, well, it sounds like you're reading, it sounds like it's scripted. Some answers have to be researched, some answers have to be read. So when you send in a question on the live chat, if it's a very detailed question, then it's going to take a detailed answer. So there's been talks that, well, we'll stop sending them in and we'll try to catch them cold on the call. That's not the answer. Because we're still, if it's a detailed question that we're going to be quoting policies, we need to be ensured that we're quoting what policy says. And the only way to do that is to read the policy to you. So I apologize for those that don't like that format, but that's the best way for us to ensure that we're getting it right, is to make sure that we're saying exactly what policy is saying. Because we don't want to say one thing and policy says something different. That creates a conflict, creates confusion, and it creates a gotcha moment that none of us wants to be a part of. So I just want to throw those two things out there, and I know I'll be talking a little more to the yes questions for.
Thank you so much for addressing that. We do get that sometimes. So I appreciate that you were just really transparent and just addressed it head on. I appreciate that you do that. Let's jump into the questions here. Many leaders say they want staff input or opinions, and when they speak up, they get in trouble for doing so. It makes good employees want to stay quiet. Do you think DSC leadership could be more receptive to staff input? And if it's not actually needed, why do they seek our staff input?
It's a great question, and I'm glad that it was asked in this format. And one of the reasons that we do these live chats is because, one, it gives me an opportunity for everyone to hear the message. Because anyone's ever played the telephone game, if you're not all on the same call in the same room at the same time, you can even be in the same room. If you whisper something in one person's ear, by the time that gets through 30 people, that message has changed. So I want to make it perfectly clear on this call. My expectation is for every individual in this department to have a voice. My expectation is for every supervisor, every leader in this agency to respect staff having that voice and to listen to those voices. Now, if that is not happening, then we need to know about that, because I can tell you the faces that you're seeing on the screen, we all believe in hearing. Now, the other thing that we all have accepted in this role is that when you give everyone a voice, you also have to be prepared for what those voices say. Now, do I like everything that's said to me? Absolutely not. But I appreciate the fact that people are willing to use their voice. And that is my philosophy, that is my belief, that is this team's belief, that every leader in this department should embrace that same thing. Now, if you're in the middle of an emergency, and you want to go and use your voice, then that may not be the appropriate time to do it. So you may get a little pushback on it then. But if there's not an emergency and there's ample time, everyone in leadership is expected to have an open door. Everyone in leadership is expected to respect everyone's voice, whether it's the new person in the PT class or the most senior person retiring and leaving the agency. It is the expectation of this leadership, and my expectation is that everyone is allowed to use their voice. And if you get any kind of retaliation or any kind of punishment for using your voice, as long as you use it professionally, then I need to know that.
Thank you so much. Here's another question about the uniform survey that recently went out. In the past, when surveys are sent out, decisions are made on the results of maybe 1,000 responses. This may not be a fair or accurate assessment of our staff, since not everyone responded. So how will you ensure that any changes that are made represent the views of the majority?
See, here again, this kind of ties into the question I was saying before. The best way for us to get feedback from staff is to ask. Now, I know there's people that are afraid to or have fears of answering surveys because they wanted to be anonymous. I hear all that. But it's like voting. If you have the opportunity to vote and you don't vote, how upset can you get with the outcome? So I get what the question is, that you're going to take a few people and make a decision based upon a few people. But the way I see that is, if we know that is happening, then that should encourage others to use their voice, because we have to go by what the responses are, because that's what we're looking for. If we give everyone the opportunity to respond to a survey and only 8 people respond to that survey, then are we not supposed to make a decision because only 8 people responded? No, we still need the information. We still need to move forward with the decision. Here's an opportunity for us to give everyone a voice, give everyone the opportunity to have input in the decision, but you have to take advantage of that input. So I don't know how else to do it. I can see where, if you're using 1,000 voices out of 6,500 plus, potential voices, is that mathing? No. But at the same time, we know there's just going to be people that aren't going to respond to surveys, or aren't going to use their voice, or going to choose to use their voice after their decision is made. But everyone has the same opportunity to use their voice. So I encourage you, when we send out surveys, and we try to be very cognizant of the fact that we don't want to over survey anybody. when we're making decisions that impact everybody, we try to give everybody an opportunity to have input in that. And the best way to do that is through these live chats, is through surveys, is through when I'm in facilities, giving out my phone number, giving people opportunities to text me, using emails. I just can't stress enough. Use your voice because your voice matters. And if you wait until after the decision has been made to use the voice, it goes back to voting. You can't complain about who's in office if you didn't vote because you didn't use your opportunity to have input in who goes in office. So I encourage you, use your voice. Really, when it matters is when before the decision is made. So if whoever sent that question in, if you want to have further conversations about it, feel free to reach out to me. I really appreciate the question because it gives me an opportunity to address that and encourage people to use the voice. But it also, I don't see any other way of doing it, and I'm open to hear suggestions. So,
fair enough. Thank you, Mr. Stansel. The Director of Communications and DEIB is Alondra Gonzalez. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Rebecca.
This question was asked in a previous live chat, but I'll ask it again. I'm writing to inquire why employees within the Department of Corrections are not permitted to customize their email backgrounds using the default wallpaper and color options. It seems unusual to restrict all users to a plain white email background.
Thank you, Rebecca. So I think this is in regards to our branding. So we know that one of our goals for a department is to really revitalize the image of CDOC. And a very small but crucial way that we can do that is really with our visible branding. And email signature lines are one of the most visible ways that our public and partners interact with us. So that is why we're so, I guess, big on making sure that our branding and our colors are all the same. So we know that, being creative and personalizing your email is important, but it's really important for us to maintain on our branding, especially when we're trying to work towards revitalizing the department and really be seen as professionals and have a unified voice. That's a small way, but a very impactful way that we can do that. So at this time, we won't be moving away from different branding colors. We'll stick with what we have previously sent out. If the person who wrote this wants to email me, I can definitely give you a how-to to ensure that your email is on brand.
Thank you so much. I did want to take this opportunity to a lot of our executive team often says, email me directly. I just want to let everyone know that they say that often because the questions are completely anonymous to them and they have no idea who sent this in or any of the questions in. So you're welcome to email that person, or you can email the DOC_questions, but these questions are always anonymous, so they just don't know who sent that in. So I appreciate that question, and it was a great opportunity to bring that up. So thank you so much for that question. Thank you, Alondra. Please explain how many staff deaths occurred this year. There are approximately 4 that I'm aware of, but I want to know if there's more. And if there are more, how come staff are not aware of it in a public forum?
And I don't know if somebody was trying to say something right beforehand.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Was someone?
Yeah, let me jump in real quick.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Sorry, Mr. Stansel.
So to kind of go along with the email and the backgrounds and what we represent, we also have to be mindful of that in our offices. If you're displaying things in your offices, and I've seen this throughout when I'm doing the tours, that is questionable. You need to be mindful of that. There's those, you got a bunch of stuff on your walls too, but if you want to come look at these walls, they all speak to who I am. But if you are displaying like Thor and all these kind of things in your office, we need to question whether that's appropriate in the offices right now. Because, like, for instance, I remember I was somewhere and I saw the Punisher. I don't know any office in the Colorado Department of Corrections where the Punisher will be appropriate to have on your office. Because if someone from the public walked in and saw that, what message are we sending to them? So I just wanted to piggyback off of the question about what can we put in our backgrounds.
Thank you. you want me to restate the question about the staff deaths, Ms. Gonzalez, or do you want?
Please, Rebecca, I think that would
Yeah.
be good. Thank you, Andre.
Of course. Thank you so much. Please explain how many staff deaths occurred this year. There are approximately 4 that I am aware of, but I want to know if there's more. If there are more, how come staff are not aware of it in a public forum?
Absolutely. I think this is a great question. I'm not sure if we've discussed it, I think in previous live chats, but I'll tackle it again. So we know how important staff and colleagues are to our department. And anytime there's a loss, we take that loss very seriously. Our communications is always led by the family and loved ones that are affected. So if the family and loved ones wish for us to send out department-wide communications, we will do that. However, they have the first right of refusal. If they don't wish for us to send any communications, our comms department won't be sending anything out. So that's some of the decisions that we have to make behind the scenes. We always honor the staff and family members that are impacted with that loss, Rebecca. So again, if anybody has any other questions, please feel free to send us an email. You can send it to Rebecca, or you can send it to DOC_PIO, and we will be happy to talk about any other specifics.
Thank you. Let's jump over to parole. Our new Deputy Director, Keto Bess. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
You have an echo, so you want
Right now. Okay, can you hear me now?
I can. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Nice to see you and nice to meet you on this public forum. We appreciate that you jumped on today.
Thank you.
Here's a question for you. This was sent in last month, and questions sometimes are carried over to the next month. So here is the question. The parole division has a significant number of CPOs that are currently assigned to a task force. By having these CPOs solely work in their assigned task forces, it goes against the overall statewide CPO ratio, increases caseload sizes statewide, and the contribution to the mission of parole division is not seen as a direct outcome of parole supervision. Can the TFOs be used in parolee supervision in some capacity, and can they be rotated out to allow others to gain this experience?
So thank you for the question. I want to first start out by reiterating at least 2 points of the CDOC's core values, and that is community safety, 3 points: community safety, opportunity, and collaborative partnerships. Our collaboration with multiple state and law enforcement agencies have contributed to the successful apprehension of parolees who have absconded from community supervision, all of which yields favorable results of providing community safety. As to the parole division, we have fewer than 10 staff members serving on task forces. At least that's my understanding. We have fewer than 10 staff members serving on task forces. Senior leadership has taken this suggestion under advisement, which remains under review. Historically, the parole division has set a lifespan for selected staff interested in serving on task forces not to exceed 5 years. However, due to minimal or no volunteers when asked, existing parole team members have been extended to continue serving on these task forces accordingly. CDOC via the parole division recognizes our staffing issues, which we continue to address. However, we remain committed to offering opportunities which embrace collaborative partnerships, all in the interest of public safety. This involves balancing community supervision alongside efforts to successfully detect and apprehend those who have absconded from community supervision. As the parole division is presently undergoing a change in leadership, this is an issue worth exploring. However, it may not be finalized, at least at this time. Parole leadership is working tirelessly with our Office of Human Resources for the purpose of increasing our recruitment and subsequent hiring efforts to address any personnel shortfalls. We encourage staff to assist in this endeavor, as recruitment can be achieved via staff assistance. Parole leadership will certainly consider discussing this matter to determine the appropriate number of CPOs assigned to task forces. Is there a need for CDOC parole division's participation in all task force operations? And where such is applicable, the need to ensure we are offering opportunities for all regularly to participate in available task forces. In the coming months, parole leadership will explore to ensure opportunities for all as we have new staff assigned to our parole division. So we certainly understand the concern and we certainly appreciate it. We just give us some time to take a look at it and we'll go from there.
Thank you, sir. Here's another question for you. Parole officers now have to do the CCIC NCI checks monthly. This is a huge task that will probably equal 1 day work per month. Will this be taken into consideration when compliance levels begin to drop?
So we're confident in our team's ability to handle this new requirement. Our recent operational tests proved our capacity as the command post successfully ran and fixed over 1,400 cases in just 5 days, all while managing their daily responsibilities. To ensure success, the department has equipped our parole officers with the necessary training and technical tools to execute this task efficiently. Further, parole leadership has created some outcome reports for the purpose of tracking CPO's progress of completion. This offers the ADs an opportunity to interact with supervisors and managers for the purpose of ensuring timely completion, which reflects a team-spirited environment to ensure our public safety obligations are indeed being addressed. Based on our assessment, we know this new requirement can be successfully managed within the existing workload. So we expect our CPOs to maintain their high standards. And let me be clear, any initial issues will be addressed through process review and technical support, not through a lowering of our contact standards.
Thank you so much. Let's go over to prison operations. Mark Fairbairn is the director. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Rebecca.
If you're sick on a resource posted day, are you supposed to make up that day?
So our facilities are tasked with managing the overtime with the resource pool. And they're also tasked with ensuring that those staff that are part of that resource pool still have ample time to complete their job duties. So to answer this question, if you're sick on a day that you're scheduled to work a post, you may be asked to work a different day just to let somebody else go back and complete their job duties when they covered for you. But that's going to be on a case-by-case basis. It's trying to manage the ability for them to work a post and to complete their job duties.
Thank you. Let's talk about Trinidad for a second. We ask our facility administration at TCF why case management, education, and maintenance staff are being used to cover call-offs that were not anticipated. We consistently get redirected to the standard response of, "It's policy." Is there any relief in sight for what appears to be a misrepresentation from prison operations?
So I'm going to go ahead and answer both those questions.
Yeah, let me ask the other question if you
Okay.
don't mind, Mr. Fairbairn. Let me just ask it and then you can respond to both on the other side here. Here at TCF, we have heard that our facility has reached around 75% or greater in overtime reduction. If this is true, is there a chance that staffing being used to help mitigate this overtime be slowly reduced and be able to go out back to their daily task and assigned duties?
Yeah, and thank you, Rebecca, for asking both those because they do fit together. So the answer is the implementation of the overtime reduction plan. It was necessitated by budgetary constraints, and it's a context for both of these questions. So as stated in the original communication of the question, each plan is customized to the specific needs and staffing levels of each facility. So we recognize that excessive overtime across all facilities has driven factors such as additional leave time, FMLA hours, staff call-offs. At TCF specifically, figures have varied since the plan's implementation, similar to all our other 19 state facilities. But the overarching goal is to achieve a 40% reduction between all of our 19 state facilities. We do deeply appreciate the efforts of all our support staff, case management, and education. They've helped to help meet this objective. We understand those significant challenges to try and maintain normal job duties while covering posts. What I would say, though, is for a more in-depth response regarding individualized mitigation efforts at TCF, I do suggest you speak directly with the warden or associate warden. And if you have any further questions that cannot be answered by them, Deputy Director Bertlow is the Deputy Director over TCF. Please feel free to reach out to her or myself for any further assistance on that question.
Thank you. How is DOC working to retain facility level management teams like wardens, assistant wardens, majors, or HSAs? These leaders consistently go above and beyond, often working 50+ hours a week, covering staff shortages at all hours and shouldering significant professional liability to keep operations running smoothly. I'm not aware of any formal ways that these individuals are thanked or even shown appreciation. What steps is DOC taking to recognize and retain these dedicated leaders?
So first of all, those individuals mentioned, those are the teams that work daily on retaining our line level workforce and supervisors at the facility level. And we are very thankful as an executive team for that great group of individuals and professionals that make this group up. They consistently go above and beyond to foster positive work environments and empower their teams. To help retain individuals, we do work individually with them on clear career pathways in their career development. It's done through regular feedback, coaching, recognizing their significant contributions to our department. We also involve them as strategic partners with our executive team. We foster teamwork through regular meetings and celebrate professional and personal milestones with them. Again, we do recognize the significance of those team members that are mentioned in this question.
Thank you, Director. If you'll stick around, we may have some questions for you at the end here. For now, let's go over to the Training Academy. Assistant Director of Staff Training and Development is Dave Lindsay. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Rebecca. Good morning, everyone.
This author writes, I am an FTE at headquarters who recently graduated from the Academy at the end of July. I was made to take the 32-hour defensive tactic course, while others in my office only had to do the 16-hour defensive tactics. Am I able to do the annual 4-hour refresher instead of the 8-hour refresher course?
Well, the person who wrote this, thank you so much for reaching out. At CTA, our normal process is to coordinate with the employee supervisor and or their appointing authority to determine which DT class is required, and it's position dependent, whether it's the 2-day or the 4-day. But unfortunately, without additional details, it's difficult to determine what the circumstances were in your particular case. So I would encourage you to please reach out to our team, and then we'd be able to look at that circumstance and be able to answer your question more effectively with that. So please, we'd encourage you to reach out so we can assist you further.
Thank you, sir. Finance and Administration Deputy Director Mitch Karstens, how are you?
Good afternoon. I'm doing well.
Good. In January, the legislature will meet to discuss next year's budget. A large part of that discussion will be having to cut another $850 million from that budget. Will these cuts include furlough days and layoffs for DOC staff?
Yeah, so at this time, they are not looking at furloughs or reduction in staff or layoffs. Currently, the budget that is going to be discussed at the legislature was announced on November the 1st by the governor. The governor must release a balanced budget on November the 1st, which he did and passed over to the legislature. They are now starting that review process, and we will be part of that, starting our hearings and briefings in December and January. But at this time, we've not heard about those things, not saying that the budget landscape can't change, but at this time, we have not heard anything about those.
Thank you. My understanding is that the E-470 program is to help women get a good head start for when they leave so that they will have money upon leaving. Nearly all the workers are mostly offenders serving very long and or life sentences and will not be leaving anytime soon. Is there a reason why we're not screening the workers better to accommodate offenders who will better benefit from this program?
Yeah, so CI is constantly balancing between the inmates that we have. We do want inmates that have experience and maybe slightly longer sentences with those that have shorter sentences that can and will be transitioning to the outside. So we are constantly looking at that. We are also looking at who is eligible and has criteria that can take those jobs. So it's a number of different factors that we are looking at when we do that. The main goal, though, like you said, is skill building for upon release, that they have skills as they exit to be employed and have jobs on the outside. And so that is what we continue to work towards, as well as putting money in the pocket of themselves when they release, but also to help their families on the outside. So we pay restitution for them through Inmate Bank. We pay child support and a whole host of things to help their family members and families on the outside and victims on the outside. So it's a balance between all of those things that we look at when we do criteria.
Thank you. Will CIGE funds be available at a later date? Several of us were recently informed funds are not available for reimbursement on licensing costs. And are they different from tuition reimbursement funds being advertised?
Yeah, so the CG funds were one-time funds that were granted through term-limited federal funds that the state of Colorado received. We no longer have those funds as a state. So the CG program has been shut down at this point. I have not heard of any discussions at the state level to reinvigorate that, again, because of some budget constraints at the state level. These programs are different than the tuition reimbursement programs. So tuition reimbursement is still something that the department does. There is an AR that kind of speaks to that and the items and the costs that can be covered under that if anybody has questions about that.
Thank you. This author writes, I'm new to DOC and am curious if the department pays an extra stipend on November's check like the years prior.
So at this time, we do not expect to have extra stipends like that added. That was something that was last year as an incentive that the department worked with the legislature on. And at this time, we do not have plans to issue those type of stipends for this fiscal year.
Thank you so much. I will ask you as well to stick around. I'm sure we'll have some more questions for you, but let's jump over to Clinical Services Director Lacey Monday. Good morning.
Hi.
Good morning. Facilities are continuing to face challenges with limited capacity and high workloads within medical, and we've noticed that new positions are being created or filled within headquarters and HQ clinical teams. We would appreciate the understanding of how our team's needs are being factored into resource allocations and what actions might be taken to ensure that we also receive timely support. And how is the executive team planning to support our teams within the facilities with resources and the help we need?
So this is a great question. There's lots of layers to it. So I'm going to touch some of them, but I'm also going to send out an email after this to clinical services just to give them an idea of what's been going on at HQ. So unfortunately, clinical services had the highest list of longstanding vacancies, and we implemented a project last year to be able to move some positions around to make sure that we are keeping positions that are currently encumbered maintained, because unfortunately we had some positions that were filled but unfunded. So that was the initiation of this project, so that we could move those unfunded or those vacant positions into filled positions. So that's step one. Step two, those positions that were abolished and reallocated to other positions, a lot of them were at the headquarters level. They're still being actively recruited for contract and agency staff. So even though that FTE has been taken away from the facility, technically, it's still being filled by an agency or contract staff. And what we've realized is a lot of those positions have always been filled, not always, but over the past many years, filled by contract agency staff. So it didn't really change that component. There are a few positions that have been created at HQ, specifically in our pharmacy. So our pharmacy has needed some additional positions for a while, specifically to implement the new pharmacy software and to expand 340B. So the intention is, if we can expand 340B savings, then we can hopefully have more money in the future to hire more positions. Another component is I don't know where this question comes from, so I know that there's so many things happening right now in clinical services. We are starting to do a reallocation or realignment of behavioral health. So we're making more leadership positions within the behavioral health division. And with that, we're not creating new positions. So these are already encumbered roles that are they're just going to be elevated because their supervisory responsibilities will be increased. So there's lots going on here. And I want to make sure that I can touch all the points. And that's why I think it would be helpful to just send out a notification of all the things that we're doing here in clinical services.
Thank you. I appreciate how tough it must be to not have any idea who sent that question in. So an email would be terrific. Thank you so much for answering that question. Our Director of Human Resources, Michelle Cottingham, is here this morning. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Rebecca.
For staff that were promoted in September 2024 and affected by the implementation of the October 2024 salary decision changes, are there any updates on those salaries being reviewed?
That's a great question. We have reviewed and calculated pay setting for the personnel actions that occurred from July to September of 2024 prior to the implementation of our compensation policy. However, the current budget does not permit salary adjustments or right sizing of current employees. When funding is available, DOC leadership will revisit and keep staff updated.
Thank you. Let's talk about the transfer process here. Will the executive team review the process of transfer requests or even consider making black and white eligibility requirements for automatic allowances for transfers between facilities? Leaving it up to the appointing authority approval opens the door for favoritism.
So it's important to remember that the central transfer process was implemented in 2023 pursuant to our site agreement. So in compliance with Section 3, which covers transfer between facilities, DOC and WINS developed a diverse working group to develop the new central transfer process to ensure it's fair and transparent to all. The process was vetted, approved by DOC leadership as well as co-WINS. There is an efficient process in place that includes minimum qualification review, appointing authority approval or denial, and total state service. What I would suggest is considering watching the video found on DocNet under Human Resources, other links, and then it's called Centralized Transfer Process 2025. And that video explains how the process works for an employee.
Thank you. I understand a new policy will be that you cannot bank holidays for future use without appointing authority approval. However, can you use a holiday on a different day in the same work week?
So currently a holiday can be used on another day at the discretion of your appointing authority. Holiday leave and flex scheduling are also at the discretion of the appointing authority. Per AR 1450-48, employees cannot be banked. Earned holidays must be used by the end of the fiscal year. Holiday hours not used by the end of the fiscal year will be reported to the appointing authority and division director prior to being paid. Excess holiday hours at fiscal year end are paid at straight time, and governor granted admin leave, if not used, is forfeited.
Thank you. Let's jump back up to finance and administration. Is any comp time over 60 hours mandatorily supposed to be paid out? And if not paid out, does the employee wait until the next pay period for that compensation to be paid out?
Sorry, I gotta click the right button. Sorry about that.
That's okay. You're good.
So let me find my question here because I wrote it down and I want to make sure that I read it correctly. Where did it go? There it is. We follow AR 1450-14, which does state that compensatory time accrued in excess of 60 hours must be paid out on the next regular pay period and should be processed by the supervisor on their timesheet, unless there's a waiver on file approving it for more than 60 hours with payroll. So as you're looking at that, that is the way that is paid out. Payroll corrections can be done, and it depends on when the payroll correction form comes in. So if it's before the 15th, it will be on that month. If it is after the 15th, which is payroll processing, it goes to the following month. So it kind of depends on the day of the month that you hit on that. If you have any particular questions on this or a personal situation, please reach out to the payroll department. They are amazing and can answer all of your questions. So In the email system, if you just start typing payroll in the email system, it will automatically come up as DOC payroll, and they would be happy to answer any personalized questions that you might have on comp time payout.
Thank you. That makes sense. Let's go back to human resources for a moment. Director, I see job postings within DOC that look for a master plumber, and they're always at a captain level. Yet I'm a lieutenant with a master's plumbing license and cannot get a promotion to captain. How does that come about when I should have been hired as a captain in the first place?
Great question. So each job posting has minimum qualifications listed. And so typically for a CSL TS2 plumber lieutenant announcements, the minimum qualifications is an active journeyman or master's plumber license issued by DORA, the Colorado Department of Regulatory Agencies. Applicants who have either a journeyman or master plumber's license may be considered for these opportunities. To be considered for a master plumber captain position, applicants need to apply and go through the recruitment process to include the comparative analysis, and then the top 6 will be referred for interview. We encourage you to watch for future master plumber opportunities on cdoc.jobs. And if you have more questions on this specific question for the submitter, you can reach out to Tracy Reese, REESE at doc.state.colorado if you have additional questions.
Thank you so much. We're going to jump back up to prison operations. Director Fairbairn, do you think that facility quarterly reports are still necessary? And if so, why? And do you think they're redundant to the monthly reports that SRCs send?
So yes, I do believe they're still necessary. And the reason why is that a lot of the information that comes out of those reports ensure that we're giving accurate information to our constituents and stakeholders. I do want to say that we have reviewed the redundancy of reporting with our facility wardens and made some changes. So if someone has a recommendation on reducing any redundancy in that, please give it the facility warden to bring up to us so we can review it, or feel free to reach out to either one of the deputy directors or myself.
Thank you. I'll shoot this question to you as well. If it needs to go to HR, we can jump over to them. With the mitigation of overtime in all areas, why are temp staff that are not hired required to cover a post? Are there more transparent guidelines for supervisors for these staff, or can we look at these positions to cover post at least partial shift requirements to assist the line staff in mitigating overtime?
So on that, we do have temp staff that are hired. And a lot of them do help us cover with hospital watches. And we've recently moved these positions underneath the Office of Emergency Management. So they can be and have been used to cover shifts. We are having trouble filling some of these vacancies, filling the vacancies with these temp positions. But we are working diligently with HR to fill those.
Thank you. Do we have a timetable for the update for AR 300-01 offender visiting program?
So I don't have a specific date that I could give right now to tell you, but I can tell you that we are working diligently on the review process for this AR to get it out as soon as possible. As everyone knows, this helps us meet the requirements of House Bill 25-1013 that was recently enacted.
Thank you. Let's go to Director Gonzalez. Considering the new executive directive to stop official function employee appreciation events, has the executive team established a new protocol to help retain employees? That may be an HR question as well. Apologize if that is.
That's okay. I'll jump in really quickly, and then if Michelle wants to chime in, by all means. But I want to be clear. Oh, sorry, Rebecca, did you say something?
Nope, you're good.
Okay. I want to be clear, the directive did not actually stop employee appreciation events. The directive really is written to protect our main department-wide appreciation week, which typically we see that around May. The directive is also, the goal is aimed to be fiscally responsible. As we've said, we're in an extremely tight budget year. So it states that state appropriated funds, which is taxpayer money, cannot be used for holiday parties this year. However, it also ensures that We're not canceling holiday parties. What we're saying is that we strongly encourage traditional staff-led gatherings such as potlucks and celebrations funded through employee councils. So again, I just want to reemphasize that we understand that these events are important. However, we are in a very tight budget year. So we encourage you to really work with your employee councils locally in your local chapters to make sure that, you know, we're doing some type of staff gatherings that are staff-led versus using state-appropriated funds.
Thank you. Let's jump back to the training academy, Mr. Dave Lindsay. In a non-correctional officer position, are we able to cross-train and or shadow in a different department? What is the process to make this happen?
All right. Well, absolutely. That's an awesome question. And yes, there are many opportunities within the department. So I would say AR 1500-01 addresses this. And what it says is employees may be allowed to cross-train in areas other than their normal work assignments. The employee must get approval from their immediate supervisor for consideration to be cross-trained. It must be approved by the supervisor or designee on a form in their AR 1500-01B, the cross-training verification form. And then it says cross-training will not account for more than 25% of the employee's total annual mandatory training hours, and cross-training schedules will not negatively impact minimal staffing patterns. So 100% it is available. Please work with your supervisor on that just to make sure that it does not negatively impact schedules and things like that. But we definitely encourage folks to learn more about different areas within the department.
Thank you, sir. Director Gonzalez, I was given the impression during Academy that leadership was interested in hearing from people who had great ideas on program development and cost-saving initiatives. What's the best way to talk with someone about this without stepping on any toes?
Sure. So I will take this one. So the best way really is to utilize DOC Solutions Form. This can be found on DocNet. It's a drop down. You can select which area you're posing some type of recommendations, and then that will get to the right party. And then this is a great way as well that if you have a cost savings idea that we can take that. Is that the question you were asking, Rebecca?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, perfect. So again, DOC Solutions is going to be the best way that you can get your ideas to us.
Great. Let's go back to F&A with the revisions of AR 100-37. What determines whether a holiday will be approved on an alternate day? The guidance we have received is that a holiday must be used within 60 days, not by the end of the fiscal year, and there must be a business need.
Yes, so this will be at the discretion of the appointing authority within those areas. It is true that there should be a business need to work on that day, but that will be at the discretion of the AA to determine and to reschedule. But the new AR edits do have that happening within 60 days.
Thank you. Let's go to our executive director, Andre Stansel. Go back to you for this final question. How is leadership ensuring that divisions and units are continuing to comply with the twice-weekly in-office mandate? And what tracking mechanisms are in place to gauge the positive impact that the return to office has had on customer service, employee efficiency, and overall outcomes to the department?
That's a great question. And I really was thinking about this one. So there's been a lot of talk today about, what are we doing to retain staff? Are we recognizing staff? Part of that is I, as a director, want to be able to trust staff and trust the staff have the integrity and the discipline to do what they're told. So when I put that message out that HQ staff was coming back, I think I made it clear in that message that I'm not going to be the 2-day-a-week police. I want to believe that staff will have the integrity to do what's right when it's supposed to be done. And so I look at the parking lot. My office faces the parking lot, and then I look at the parking lot and I see there are some days that there are more vehicles in the parking lot than others. But I write that off as that not everybody's coming in on the same days of the week. The directors all know the expectations for making sure their staff are here on time and they're right time frames on the right days. So I guess the basic question I would give to that is right now we're operating on the honor system. So I hope we don't have to get to the point where we're doing check-ins and check-in clocks and all that, because to me, that's not an environment that I would want to work in. So we're talking about staff retention. We're talking about how we're going to get new staff. The biggest piece of that is being able to trust staff. So that's where we are now. Now, if we find that there are times when, you know, someone is abusing that, then of course we're going to do what we need to do to address that concern. But creating an issue of having someone posted at the front or going through checking off names of who's supposed to be who's not, we're not there yet. And I hope we don't ever get there, because I want staff to have integrity. So if you are staff and you're listening and you're one of those ones that may be abusing the system, please don't get us to the point where we have to go through the whole checking in and checking punch-ins and all that, because to me, that's not a good environment. I want to be able to trust staff. So if that didn't address your question, please feel free to reach out to me more. But I think the question was, you know, what are we doing, or do we have a mechanism to track? No, we don't have a mechanism to track that. And as far as tracking the outcome, if it's really meeting the outcome, our job is to be here, be accessible to the general public. So the fact that I see more cars in the parking lot now than I did before I made that decision to bring everybody back at least 2 days a week, that's proof enough to me that we're meeting our goal. Our goal is to be here as staff, and the public needs us. And there are more vehicles, more people here than it was before that 2-day message was put out. So.
Thank you. That's all the questions we have in the inbox right now. If I remember correctly, we also ended a few minutes early last month. Are you liking the idea of doing this every month, or would every 2 months be better to suit the needs?
So this is another one of those times where I want to hear staff's voice. This is an opportunity where I want to know what do you all recall? What do you all want from the exec team? Because we will do this as often as the staff want to hear it. But for those that have ever been in meetings with me, I don't like doing meetings just to be doing meetings. So if the once a month is sufficient, that's what staff wants, and we'll continue to do it. If we're not getting the questions, or if people are saying this is too often, the frequency is too often, then I'm okay with adjusting it. Because if we all recall, it used to be once every 3 months, you know, and then there was more information that was being requested from us. So that's when we went to the monthly thing. But if you think we're at a point now where the information is sufficient to where we can do this quarterly, we can do it bi-monthly, I'm totally open to that.
Sounds good. The next regularly scheduled one is on Wednesday, December 17th at 11 o'clock.
Hey, Rebecca, before we end, I want to say that we're getting into the holiday season, and this is a time where it's a real high energy time for some, but it's also a very stressful time for others, where there's tight budgets, where there's loss of loved ones during this time, where there's not being around loved ones at this time. So I want to ask all staff to, let's look out for one another. You know, no matter, there's enough craziness going on in the world that we can disagree and we can argue about, but here's an opportunity for us to come together as DOC family and look out for one another. If you see something, say something. I would start out by saying something to the individual that you see the change in. But if that doesn't work, feel free to say something to others, because most of us see the holiday time as positive and times that we get to spend with our families. But there's a few in our family, POC family, that don't see these as positive times and struggle to make it through. So I encourage us all, no matter what our differences are, no matter what you feel about one another, we're all DOC family. We rely on each other. So let's do the right thing this year, make sure that we're taking care of one another.
Well said. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you for those watching and our executive team for being here today. We'll see you again on Wednesday, December 17th. Thank you so much.